The problem is this: while our feelings are real, they're not always right. We can have people have feelings for people who aren't their spouses. It's not right to break a covenantal commitment. People have feelings of hurting someone who hurt them to a point to where that person is no longer alive. Those feelings are real, but the conclusion is not right. And so what we see when people deploy kind of this global relativism as opposed to what Scripture declares as righteousness, which is determined by God's standard, they claim to follow Jesus's teachings while ignoring his frequent claim to sin no more, right? He says this to the woman in John chapter 4, the woman at the well, the woman in John chapter 8, even when he deals with this in John chapter 9, where they assume sin. He said, no, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but so that the glory of God can be revealed. But then he addresses sin later on. So frequently, Jesus does confront sin, but a deconstructionist Christian, as they have formed their own form of morality, and the Scripture is now subject to how they view morality, and if it contradicts them, they're going to go with their conviction as opposed to what the Scriptures declare as truth. They tend to ignore those verses where Jesus confronts sin. This is often wrongly rooted in a false sense of Matthew 7. In Matthew 7, Jesus says, "Judge not, and you will not be judged, for with the same manner you judge, it will be used against you." Then he talks about the plank in your eye and the speck in your brother's eye. And what they fail to do with Matthew 7 is, if you keep reading, he says, first deal with the plank, then he says, go deal with the speck, meaning he's encouraging them to judge. Also, if you read John chapter 8, verses 23 through 27, he says, Jesus, and this is in the red, so you can go behind me and see this, Jesus says, I'm saying this so that you will judge correctly. So it's not that Jesus tells us not to judge. He tells us how to judge, meaning that there is absolute truth and that we should apply that the right way. But the moral relativist and the deconstructionist Christian will essentially say that there is no absolute truth. But here's the problem. That